Hey guys, what's going on? It's Gunnar here. Welcome back to the channel. But today I'm going to talk a little bit about woodsmanship, scouting deer, and the three necessities that you need to find when you're looking to harvest and scout and pattern mature deer when it comes to hunting. So I had somebody comment on one of the latest videos. They said, teach us how to do this without the gadgets, without the new age technology of hunting, the trail cameras, the scent wicks, the mock scrapes, all of this new age stuff that has been promoted as necessities when it comes to hunting and harvesting mature deer. And that's not true. You don't need a trail camera to find and kill big deer. What I use trail cameras for is confirmation of what I'm seeing, the sign that I'm seeing. When I started, I didn't have enough money to go out and drop $150 on a trail camera that may or may not work based on the reliability of those cameras back in the day. Now, what I'm using them for is if I go in and I find sign, say I find a big rub line on a heavy trail heading to a clover field or an alfalfa field, I might hang a trail camera on that and see what deer are making that sign. That's confirmation of what I'm seeing. Trail cameras are not a make or break when it comes to finding and scouting deer. They confirm what you're already seeing physically with the sign in the woods. But at the end of the day, the three necessities that a deer needs to survive and that they're looking for is food, water, and cover. And it's no different when it comes to humans surviving. We need food, water, and shelter. So it's very easy to overcomplicate the whole hunting industry in itself because everybody's trying to sell you a specific gadget that is going to make it easier. And some of them do, right? When it comes to confirming what specific deer or what caliber of deer are making the sign that we're looking at. But at the end of the day, me specifically, I'm hunting for age versus inches. Now, it's cool to hunt big deer, but at the end of the day, 1 in 10 is ever gonna hit 150 inches, so let's just be realistic when it comes to hunting inches. Now, every single farm I hunt is less than 100 acres in high pressure, high hunter density, Wisconsin. Guys, it's Gunnar. Look, a lot of you guys have been talking to me, telling me how you need help. Well, I wanna talk to you today about Whitetail coaching, one-on-one virtual coaching with me. We'll go in depth on whatever problems, whatever help you need. We'll find the solution you're looking for. Shoot me a text, 608-632-7233. 608-632-7233. I got your back for life. Now let's get back to the video. Now there's 60,000 plus gun hunters that take part in the gun deer season in Wisconsin every single year. So that is as high pressure as it gets. And with that last video that I made talking about hiding your trail cameras, that's so important. That's why you have to be so careful when it comes to using the gadgets that are now sold to us in the hunting industry. So when it comes down to woodsmanship and finding the three necessities that deer need and are looking for, it's food, water, and cover. So what's scarce is valued. If you're hunting an area that is super overgrown, there's not a lot of underbrush coming up, it's a lot of big, say maybe maple trees, it's a lot of overmature aspen. Food and cover is what's scarce there. Now it's pretty easy to predict where the deer are gonna be when you have landscapes like that. If you have a small 40-acre chunk that's nothing but low brush, high quality native regeneration that's actually been managed and cut back, you're gonna have an unproportionate amount of deer spending time in that 40-acre chunk versus the 500 around it that is completely overgrown and unmanaged, and you can see 200 yards through the timber in the fall. Deer are not gonna wanna spend time there. They're gonna spend time where they're feeling secure and safe, where they have cover. So like I said, what is scarce is valued. Deer are gonna value that 40-acre chunk far more than that 500 acres that's very low quality when it comes to cover. Now, food sources at the same time. This is an ever-changing thing when it comes to whitetail hunting. Food sources are always coming in and out of high desirability when it comes to deer hunting. So deer are feeding on food sources based on the nutritional benefits they need at a specific time. So in the springtime, the first green food source that a deer has the opportunity to feed on, they are going to. So all of this is ever changing. In the springtime, they want that first green food source, that highly palatable protein, maybe it's rye or clover or alfalfa, that's starting to green up again as that springtime rolls in. Now, when it gets into the summer months, food is abundant. They have plenty of options. They can browse on native weeds like goldenrod. They have beans. They have young beans taking off. They have clover. They have alfalfa fields. All of these food sources are abundant at this time. They're browsing on the new regeneration in the forest. So all of these things are ever changing. Now, when you get into the fall months, this is when you can predict a movement. You can create a predictable movement when it comes to your food plots or your ag fields. Now, each of these food sources are going to have a draw at different times of the year. Now, if you're planting forage oats, those are going to be a little bit earlier in the year, maybe an early fall attractant, early September, maybe into early October. Then you've got your forage peas if you're planting those. Maybe you've got some soybeans in there. Those are all going to be earlier in the year that they're attracting deer. Now, your brassicas and your turnips, those are going to be a later draw. So you have to plan all of this stuff out. You have to understand that not all of these food sources are drawing deer at the same time. So when it comes to woodsmanship and understanding how deer and how to predict where deer are going to be at a specific time of the year, you have to understand what's attractive during what time of the year. Now, native regeneration and browse within the forest and in the timber, in their bedding areas, in the staging areas, those are attractive year-round because they're always spending time in there. Deer are always going to have a bedding area that they want to have native browse in, and they can browse around and feed throughout the day within that security cover. Now, if you have that, that is a predictable situation that actually stays consistent throughout the year. But that all changes when you get oak trees that start dropping in early fall. You get apple trees that start dropping. Now you have all of these different food sources pulling deer different directions. So when it comes to woodsmanship and understanding what's attractive during what time of the year, this is all hands-on experience that you need to get. A trail camera is not going to tell you the whole story of what a deer is feeding on during a specific time of the year. They give you a snapshot into a movement of that deer within a 24-hour period. There's a lot of ground that a deer is covering within that 24 hours. That gives you a small snapshot of what that deer is actually doing during that day. Now, it can help put together the pieces of the puzzle, but it's not the end-all be-all if you don't get a picture of a deer. But at the same time, a mock scrape or a scent wick is not going to pull a deer away from a highly attractive apple tree just 500 yards to go hit this mock scrape. That's not the case. That's not what's going to happen. So we need to get away from the icing on the cake type application when it comes to adding these new age concepts. We need to get back to the basic when it comes to woodsmanship and finding deer and how to find deer, food, water, and cover. So if you can go back to these things and understand the bare necessities that a deer is looking for, it's gonna make things a lot more simple. Now, when it comes to water, you have consistent water sources and you have yearly water sources. Now, this year in Wisconsin, much of Wisconsin had a drought. And on drought years, I think deer are highly predictable because water is a scarce resource. And like I said before, what's scarce is valued. So where you have water, where there's not a lot of water around, that's going to be pounded. Deer are gonna value that heavily. They're gonna transition to that. It's gonna be a consistent movement because that's one of the only options that they have to get that resource. So you have your constant resources, your springs, your creeks, your streams, your man-made ponds, but even those in a heavy, severe drought, those man-made ponds can go dry. We have a couple bulldozed ponds that were dry. Now, we tried to fill them back up, but when you have evaporation taking place all day, you got 90-degree heat, you've got no moisture in the air, it doesn't take long to suck up 500,000 gallons in a man-made water hole. So those are the three things that you need to be taking into consideration. Those are the core things that when you're out scouting for deer, that's what you should be looking for. Quality cover, and when you add in native regeneration and good daytime browse, you're gonna find a high deer density in that area. And if it's a scarce resource in that area, if there's a lot of unmanaged timber, if it's a lot of low value, over mature timber, and you find a good pocket that's managed correctly, there's a lot of good natural regeneration occurring, there's good native browse in there, you're gonna find a concentration of deer. That's why deer hunting can become predictable, because you have large acreage of unmanaged timber or unmanaged ground. And if you can section off a piece of property or find a piece of property on public has been managed, or you have a area where there's been blowdowns or dead trees have tipped over and you got good native regeneration, that's an area that you're gonna be looking for that's gonna have a high concentration of deer, because it's some of the only option of that resource in the area. So if you can find those honey holes, that's where your great deer opportunities are gonna come from, in those areas where you find that golden egg, that scarce resource that deer are hammering and utilizing heavily. And like I said, the drought years, those are highly predictable. And then the timing of the food sources. The food sources dictate where the deer are moving day in and day out, and that changes by the day. So understanding what's highly desirable during what time of the year, and this all comes with experience and understanding, going in and scouting multiple times a year, to understand, okay, it's early April here. What are the deer hitting right now? This paints a picture of what's highly desirable to them in early spring. Now, this isn't hunting season by any means, but it's gonna be relatively close to where deer are gonna be shedding their antlers, if that's a common theme over the course of multiple years. If, say, there's a field that's always planted in rye, that's gonna be a common place that deer are probably dropping their antlers, because rye is highly desirable during spring green up because it's one of the only green food sources available. It's high in protein and it's easily digestible. So think about these things when you're going out and scouting and trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together when finding deer. And all of these things are overlapping when it comes to large acreage, public land, or small acreage. Like I said, all of the parcels that I hunt are small acreage in highly pressured Wisconsin. So all of this stuff is relative when it comes to deer hunting wherever you go in the country. Food, water, and cover. If you compare food and cover, you're gonna have a high quality bedding area that deer are spending a lot of time in. If you can find a highly attractive food source during a specific time of the year, you're gonna have a predictable movement of deer going to there. If you find a water source that deer are consistently hitting, you found a resource that is gonna predict movement into the future. Now, like I said, with those drought years, it becomes even more predictable because water is very scarce at that time. So remember these three things when you're thinking about going out and scouting, trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. You don't always need to have the brand new gadget or the brand new trail camera on said food source to figure out what's going on. It's only gonna tell you a small snapshot of that deer's 24-hour movement. You're gonna be better off finding sign back in a bedding area, traveling to a food source, maybe find the high quality water that they're stopping at prior to hitting that food source or nearby that food source. If you're in a drought year like we had last year, and you know there's a spring in this specific location, you know that's gonna be a highly attractive destination for those deer to move through. So remember those three things. There's three things: food, water, and cover. If you remember those three things and you dial in and understand, scout, get that experience, that knowledge on those properties that you're hunting, you're gonna be far more successful next fall.